And to address in some detail what that conspiracy looks like, we'd like to go next to one of those who is with us live. I'm very pleased to say J.R. Nyquist, known to his friends, I'm proud to be one, as Jeff. He is also a member of our Committee on the Present Danger China, a brilliant strategic analyst, a blogger. You can follow his work at J.R. Nyquist blog. He is an author as well, among other books, a very important one entitled The Lies We Believe in China, Russia, and the Communist Revolution in America. We're delighted, as always, to have his expertise on specifically what seems to be now underway in terms of not just strategic planning among these conspirators, but what may be ominous early warning indicators of movement into a next kinetic phase of what I call World War G. Jeff, welcome to this program. Thank you so much for being with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Frank. I'm just going to go over the China's strategic war preparations and the signs and testimony that they are preparing for a larger war against the West and the United States in particular. The present Chinese buildup on the coast, they have moved thousands of fighting vehicles, including 1,400 additional vehicles this year, to the coast. This year it has been infantry armored fighting vehicles. They have also outfitted 60 rower ships to carry armored fighting vehicles. And these can carry, over 1,000 up to 2,000 vehicles in each ro-ro ship. China has been engaging in naval drills ongoing throughout the summer, including naval drills with Russia. And I believe North Korean submarines have been involved in these. China is also engaged in an Air Force buildup in recent days. They have forward positioned 400 additional fighter aircraft, with about half stationed opposite the Yellow Sea in the direction towards Japan and 200 opposite Taiwan. This reinforcements, in addition to aircraft already stationed in the area, they had began this larger buildup around 2022, around the time that the Russian invasion of Ukraine began, or shortly after that invasion. The next point is the alliance that China has with Russia, Iran, Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela, and other what we might call the new communist bloc countries. NATO officials, including the head of NATO, has recently said that Russia and China are both preparing for a long war against the West. China is supporting Russia in its war in Ukraine, as Chinese trains full of ammunition have been arriving to the Belarusian border with Poland, where Russia is also engaged in a military buildup. China is supporting this. China is supporting Russia by allowing, together with North Korea, free access to the river that borders Russia and North Korea. That river leads up to the border that is between Russia and China, where China has prepared military units that they want to move possibly downriver to Korea or an invasion of Japan. Not sure why Russia wants to move barges up this river, and China wants to move barges up this river, and Russia and North Korea are giving the thumbs up. China has been sending troops to North Korea. I have reports from Chinese sources on this that go back more than a year and a half. In Wednesday's parade in Beijing featured Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, and the dictator of North Korea. Among officials from Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba were there. China has also positioned troops in Venezuela in the Western Hemisphere. This is particularly important because China has been participating with Russia and Iran in an operation tunneling out a mountain near Caracas into which they have installed IRBMs. There are IRBM silos visible from satellite photographs that can be obtained by anyone who wants to pay for the satellite pictures. There are double-track rail lines running into this tunnel. We only see about 100 yards of track, maybe 150 yards of track, going into the tunnel, but it disappears under the city of Caracas and reappears in an airfield, which looks to be controlled by the Russians, where the train is obviously able to pick up missiles or whatever they want to put under this mountain. There is an indication, the way this missile silo complex is created, that these IRBMs have some kind of reload capacity. So the 22 tubes that you can see from space, it is every indication they can be reloaded. China has headquarters near this mountain. So do the Russians, and the IRCG have positions there. There are Chinese troops in Venezuela. This is not a secret. China is also all over Africa and Latin America. There have been reports of Chinese troops in Mexico even. And of course, Chinese workers in various countries many of them are PLA reservists. This includes Africa, of course, where there's very important mines and natural resources the Chinese are attempting to strategically control. The South African regime, of course, is part of BRICS, which is the Brazil, Russia, India, China plus alliance. And of course, there on South Africa, you can interdict, not only is it a tremendous mineral storehouse in South Africa, but you can interdict the tanker traffic from the Middle East from there, because that's the Cape Waterway. China has been moving, and by the way, China has built a submarine base in the South African area in Namibia, so they can use those submarines to interdict the tanker traffic. China has been moving weapons into Mexico secretly and bringing drugs through Mexico, Cuba, Venezuela for years into the United States, especially fentanyl. There's been a major fentanyl bust in Houston. I think it's the biggest drug bust in U.S. history. And of course, Russia and China have this unlimited partnership. They announced just before Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, during the Beijing or at the start of the Beijing Olympics that year. China has declared itself strangely an Arctic power and has been building up an icebreaker fleet. Now, this is a bit of a mystery until we realize, we look at the Russian press, and the Russian press for years has been discussing the possibility of moving its northern fleet through the Arctic ice into the Pacific to join with the Chinese. This has actually appeared in the Russian press. So all of these things indicate cooperation with Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, and other communist countries. Now, the third major item in preparation is China is building the largest drone force in the world. They have been active in Ukraine war with units studying the way this war is fought. And this has influenced China in the last 3.5 years. China has committed more and more to the building of drones, to the creation of the most powerful drone fleet in the world. China has been developing by smuggling drones from chips, very advanced configured chips from the United States, illegally. They're not supposed to get these things, to put into these drones, so these drones can be flown without the need of a human pilot. This is very significant in swarm drone attacks, and that's what this AI technology allows. You can have swarms of hundreds or thousands of drones to attack ships, airfields, you name it. As we've seen in Ukraine, drones have successfully attacked surface vessels, tanks, artillery, supply stores, and even aircraft. The Ukrainians have shot down Russian aircraft with drones over the Black Sea. China has been testing, by the way, this is something that only the Chinese we know have, a new supersonic drone which can carry nuclear warheads. Now, China has been caught smuggling military drones into Libya. They were caught smuggling them, transiting them through Italy, disguised as farm equipment. As seen in Russia, the Ukrainians have proved that drones can be smuggled into a hostile country and used to attack strategic air bases, which was very dramatic here. not long ago. Considering the flexibility and utility of drone weapons, the Chinese policy of infiltrating the United States economically becomes more dangerous since the Chinese might have thousands of drones already on American soil, hidden on property controlled by Chinese companies. Now, the fourth item, strategic item that I want to touch on is China has been preparing an infiltration invasion or attack on the United States. We first heard about this from the Russian defector Colonel Stanislav Lunev. He was a GRU officer who had worked in China, spoke fluent Mandarin, was involved in some of the negotiations with China to unite their intelligence and to create the operational plans and strategic plans for a future attack on the United States. This was all organized in 1991 and early 92 when the Soviet Union collapsed. The policy, according to Lunev, was that Russia would invade Alaska and parts of Canada. They would own those. And if victory was assured, China would own the lower 48 states with other countries invited in for looting rights. This strategy, Lunev said, would be based on the the German invasion of Norway in 1940, which was an infiltration invasion. The Germans invaded through the British fleet by infiltrating commandos through Sweden and infiltrating ships right past the British fleet as, differently flagged merchantmen carrying German soldiers and heavy armament. This is how the Germans captured Norway in 1940. This is sort of the model for China invading the lower 48 states. Evidence has since appeared since Lunev's testimony to the U.S. Supporting Lunev's claims. First, there was the Sidewinder report in Canada, a joint study that came out in 1997 of the RCMP and CSIS, the Canadian CIA, that discovered that the Chinese triads were aligned with the People's Liberation Army and the Chinese intelligence service to infiltrate the Canadian economic system, to be able to launder money to take control of the Canadian political system so that they could use Canada to attack America in the flank. I was in Toronto last September, and Canadian politicians told me that they believed this had already happened, that China had taken over Canada from within. Other evidence comes from Mexico. We have the work of Scott Gulbranson, who wrote the book, The Silent Invasion. He was a Las Vegas reporter who went down there to find out what the communists were doing, and he found evidence that the Chinese were moving weapons and stockpiling weapons in Mexico and smuggling some of these arms caches into the United States. He covers that extensively in his book. Also, again, to facilitate a infiltration invasion. There have been many sources since then, isolated sources from Mexico, reporting on this, and you can find them. They're all over the place.
Jeff, could you wrap up? This is fascinating and incredibly impressive.
This was the last point. This touches on the mass Chinese explosion of Chinese illegal immigration into the United States. And the conclusion is we have an alarming situation on the border.
Yeah, on the border and now inside the country. Jeff Nyquist, thank you. This is very bracing information, needless to say, and I appreciate, as always, the broad sweep of your expertise and understanding of it and your ability to relay it so powerfully. We're going to turn to one of our duty experts on the Middle East, but he happens to have an expertise across the